Because in all countries of Europe, chess in schools has started to be an important part of the different federations. And so there was a need for this kind of commission. And of course the first thing we had to do was to understand what does it look like in the different countries of Europe. So it started to do a survey to try to get a grip of what it really looks like. Because we heard about all these different projects, all of these different organizations working with chess in schools, but we realized that they worked very differently. And they did that because of the context, depending on the style of education. So there were different factors that made these chess in schools programs looking very differently. And that everyone was fighting with, even Armenia, when I met Zumbat in the beginning, he said that the biggest problem they were facing was actually how to teach. How to use this material in the best way when the purpose was to reach social and intellectual development of the kids. So what we started to do, what we said was that what we need to do is to put up a standard. Try to find out the best methods, try to develop them, and try, not the least, to make courses on how you can teach in the best way using these different materials. For doing that, we did one thing that I think has been very important for us, was that we immediately started to create a group of reference groups of professors in a device group. Even though these professors, they could not do maybe scientific work because that takes a lot of money.
Curriculums and books were produced and suggested, but nothing very much happened. So initially the title of school instructor was created with seminar courses to teach ideally and primarily school teachers.
I'm a psychologist and I was involved in education quality assurance activities for many years. And why I am here and why can I present you? First of all, during my professional career, I was involved in Chess Scientific Research Center as a psychologist who will do research and measure the quality of implementing chess in schools. You know that Armenia has implemented chess in schools as a compulsory subject, and we had to know the impact of this implementation, the effect of this implementation. So, I was involved also in teacher training activities because our teachers, Jesper mentioned and Salvatore Putin had mentioned many times, and that we had challenge of teachers and teaching methodologies, to be honest. That all countries which is going to implement chess as a subject, it doesn't matter compulsory or optional, they have these problems. Ways to control the quality or to be assured of the quality. Quality control procedures are they are not a very good process because it's not implemented already, and there is a quality assurance procedure which is new and innovative, etc. So we agreed that we need to have quality evaluation form, first of all, to have those standards that we must achieve. We must evaluate what we have. So that's why we have designed quality educational evaluation form, which includes standards, much more not complicated, very simple standard criteria. For example, quality of curriculum. Because we must be sure that the quality of curriculum is good. Who is going to teach the child? We must prove them. So, then, the second criteria is learning, teaching and assessment of students. How students must be assessed. Do they know how they must be assessed? Because sometimes I will say, oh, I give you a high mark, I give you middle, etc. But the problem is fairness, the problem is having good understanding how I should be evaluated, etc., etc. Then, the third criteria is learning environment, student support and certification. We must be, this standard is not new. This standard is included in quality assurance criteria. It's called European Standards and Guidelines. How to measure teaching staff. So, they asked me, how do you measure your teaching staff? Yes, we have procedures. We have certification certification process in Armenia. But the problem is not that do we measure and how we measure. The problem is someone who cares about teaching chess in schools. Does he or she care about his teaching or his or her teaching staff? How they work with them? If they do something, if they have feedback from them, from students, from teachers, from other persons, other stakeholders, they care about it or not.
I'm from Scholastic, the Danish Scholastic Chess Federation. In all municipalities in Denmark, we do education of teachers, we have learning concepts, we have educational materials, we have activities, and then we have a new IT platform where we push all the content and we do co-creation. So in all these areas, and that's probably only some of the areas that is needed to run a professional organization in this field. But we need to implement quality standards everywhere.
Because a lot's been said already in terms of quality.
Yes.
We'll pinpoint some of the directions that he thinks are particularly important to focus on moving forward. This can be published. The trickiest and most difficult processes is actually understanding how we can help countries that want to implement it, but they need to know how to teach their teachers and develop it from the early stages. At which rate we need to help each country and what stage every country is at, and be able to develop all together and share it. Take good points from every country, things that are working, and also take the problems and share them and fix them all together. It's a new direction, a new concept putting chess into the curriculum. We all need to work together and each do our part to get us one step closer to that. Countries focused on putting what is the best and saying that's the best method, that will help. It's about unifying together and putting together a method that will work across the board. It's about looking at what can be most universally helpful and working together and collaborating. I've been doing this for a long time and he's seen it progress, and he definitely can see that it's gone from to be more important, and everyone's appreciating that, so it's moving in the right direction. In Armenia, it's not about teaching chess, it's about actually giving the tools and strategies for children to be able to tackle life and other questions, so it's more about making it more of a life.
I just have a question. It's impressive what you do in Armenia. I think you also have some structures that will help you in a way we will never ever have in the Western countries. But do you believe that there's one right course, one right curriculum, one right way of doing things, or do you think there's multiple ways?
No. He says no, but it's about taking parts of each one and combining to create things that work together, but it's not about one being better than the other.
Talk about standards and criteria. We should have some universal, but first of all we must appreciate the diversification of the courses and contexts, and the standard does not mean that we must have the same or similar. The opposite. We must have diverse programs, diverse approaches, and that is beautiful, that is good, and that is higher. But on the other hand, we must learn from best practices. We cannot do anything without knowing and sharing practices or learning from best practices.